Okay, so this is Julia Osęka, and she has been chosen to be a delegate to the Synod of Synodality, which is an amazing convocation, a gathering that Pope Francis called 2 years ago to discuss how we talk to each other, which is the nature of dialogue, right, in synodality. And Julia has been an amazing presence in our local synodal presence through our universities. And that's where I met Julia for the first time and had a long conversation with her having coffee one day. And she was proposed and nominated and picked, one of two young adults, I believe, Julia, in the country to be, I believe, a voting delegate, actually, of the synod that begins next week throughout the month of October in Rome. So, Julia, this is a great honor for you, but it's also a great honor for us in St. Joe's University and all our Catholic universities, because you emerged definitely as a wonderful voice and a wonderful leader representing university students and young adults. What does this synod mean to you?
Thank you, Archbishop. And I just wanted to thank you very much for your support on this journey too, because we wouldn't have gathered, we wouldn't have met if you didn't attend our meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But this, continuing on your question, I think this is what Synod truly is
Mm-hmm.
the space, creating those spaces for people to meet with each other without any presuppositions,
Mm-hmm.
to journey together truly as the people of God, to see in each other the baptismal dignity of every human being,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to use that as a facilitator on the journey towards God.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, because that's the spirit of Pope Francis, right? To bring people together, to share, to talk, and allow then the Spirit to speak through the delegates,
Right.
through the church, to him as the Holy Father.
I fully agree with that.
So, Julia, how did you react when you learned that you had been selected, called by the church to be one of 10 voting delegates from all of Canada and the United States, from North America? That must have been like amazing.
It truly was. I was actually celebrating my father's name day, which is a celebration we do in Poland often for older adults. And I got an email from the Vatican with a document, an attachment in Italian. I thought it was Italian, but then there was a translation into English as well, saying that I was invited by Pope Francis to be one of the delegates. And obviously, I was extremely overjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
By that point, my family didn't really know about it because the USCCB asked for the whole process to be confidential.
Mm-hmm.
So only then did I tell them, and the celebration was like a double celebration by that point, because we
Wow.
were celebrating my dad, but also this wonderful, wonderful invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
remember
still,
speaking to you when you were in Poland.
yes.
From here, I called you, and you were just filled with just joy and a wonderful sense of gratitude.
Oh yes, gratitude is probably the biggest treasure and feeling I have within me when it comes to this entire process and an
Mm-hmm.
event.
Mm-hmm. How did it feel know that the church has called you forth to be a voice, a young adult voice from the United States to be a part of really a historic moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Synods are always historic in the church. Um, what was going in your heart and mind?
It is a humbling experience. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt that there is a huge mission ahead of us as a church, but
Mm-hmm.
also this desire to grow in my prayer as well, to truly be a delegate, not only Julia going to the
Mm-hmm.
synod, but with all that, I'm also beyond grateful to Pope Francis for his invitation to young people,
Mm-hmm.
lay people in general, but young people and women to be active voting participants in the synod. This is groundbreaking and this is extremely new in the church.
It is, yeah.
But I truly believe that it is the Spirit leading Pope Francis and the Synod Secretariat to prompt this decision and to invite us.
It is in a lot of ways groundbreaking, right? Synods are usually in the church just with bishops.
Mm-hmm.
But the Holy Father has been inspired to include lay people, and I'm personally overjoyed that he is including young adults who oftentimes kind of feel that they don't have a voice, and here you are being given a voice, not just for Julia Osęka, but for a young adult Catholic who's committed to the Lord and loves the Lord and loves the church. And so that is a particular gift of this synod that makes it, as you say, unique and groundbreaking, really inspired.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
What do you hope to bring? What do you hope to bring to the Holy Father and to your synod, companion, colleague delegates?
I hope to bring the experience of the young church,
Mm-hmm.
not only here in the United States or greater North America, but also my experience of the young church in Poland.
In Poland, yeah.
Which those two are very interwoven.
Right.
And there is no generalization happening. I think those are it is a mosaic of experiences of my friends and people I met. So I particularly value the meetings we had, our meetings with SHEEP, with other university students from Philadelphia area, but also people I've met through youth ministries, on my university campus, who are not necessarily Catholic, but had experiences with Catholic Church. I think that those voices, especially the voices of people who are scared to talk, or who feel like there is no space for them to talk, to voice their concerns, their experiences, are extremely valuable, and they need to be brought to the space of synodal discernment.
If you were to put into a sentence the experience of being a young adult Catholic in the church, and you have the Pope sitting there, which you will, right? And you had to break it down to a sentence, what would it be? When you speak about the experience.
Young people of North America and of other continents as well, I'm sure, want to be the now of the church, want to be active protagonists in the church, want to learn and listen to the Spirit and work hand in hand with those in higher positions and leadership positions in the church.
Well, I can tell you the Pope is going to love that, because in Christus Vivit, Christ alive, that's exactly the way he refers to the young community in the church, right? He doesn't really like the word that or the phrase that you are the future. And I can understand that, because when you talk about the young adults are the future of the church, it's almost negates their presence in the present.
Yes.
Right? And so that phrase, the now of God, is a beautiful phrase that Pope Francis has coined. And I'm sure that in his heart and in his prayer, he wanted the now of God, there present.
And he's making it happen. He invited us
Right.
to have the seat at the table, to be there,
Right.
to share our experiences.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Truly.
Yeah.
Well, Archbishop Pérez, you have been very active with young people in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. You attended our very first intercollegiate meeting at La Salle almost 2 years ago now.
Right, and another one at St. Newman University, right?
Yes, right. So what prompted you to invite young people into the synodal process, to then invite young people to be the delegates for the continental stage as well, to meet with young people such as myself for coffee? What was it?
I really resonate with the Holy Father's, that phrase, right? The now of God. And I often do think that at times young adults don't have a place at the table all the time, because people my age and older take up all the oxygen, right? And so my hope has been, since really I've gotten here and in my other assignments, to make it a particular point to listen to that voice, but also be present to them. Sometimes not saying anything, actually, right? But to be present to them, because the church belongs to all of us, but in a particular way, for young adults, you have a path forward in the church when I'm not going to be there, right? And I think it's I think it's important that the church and that I, as the Archbishop of Philadelphia, always reserve a place at the table for young adults. So it was a great joy for me to listen that night. In that listening session we had at LaSalle University, followed up a year later at Newman University, to listen to what's in the hearts of young people, and listen to their joys and their struggles and their challenges, trying to understand the voice and the teaching, the profound teaching of the church, and which in many times is somewhat, in some areas, in tension with the world around us, right? The church has always been in a counter kind of cultural relationship with the world around it, right? And young people, I think, in a particular way, experience that tension, right? Because of where they move. And the church needs to be there with them to help them along that process, because it is a process of growth and development and of deepening the understanding of the treasure and of the tradition of the church as handed on from generation to generation to generation. Right? I was a young adult. I wasn't born like this, right? And so my own thoughts and my own devotional life and spiritual life has changed and grown over 62 years of life, right? And so I'm very sensitive and aware, because I was there too. I was where you were.
So, Archbishop Perez, how have you seen synodality being implemented in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia? How do you see the synodal spirit, changing the dynamic in our archdiocese?
I have to be honest, my experience as a priest in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and now as the Archbishop, is that while we might not have called it synodality, my experience has been, it has always been very synodal, right? So as a priest in a parish, there was always a synodal process in the parish. I was a pastor twice. I founded an institution for evangelization. It was always a very dynamic exchange of ideas. Right? I could have never done what I've done as a pastor, as a diocesan administrator, and as a bishop if it wasn't synodal, right? At least for me, right? So while it might not have been called a synodal process, the spirit of synodality has been part of my ministry and the way I do ministry, and even more so in being called to leadership in the church has been synodal, right? Though now that's the buzzword. That's like, it's almost like the practice that we had now has a word given by the church. So my personal experience is that synodality in spirit has been an integral part of my own ministry in the church and the way I have conducted it. And even the way I run the diocese. I have the bishops and senior staff here meet all the time, and everything's very, we don't call it synodal, but it's collaborative, it's exchanging of ideas. I'm always asking questions and listening, knowing that at times then I'm charged of making a decision, but it's a synodal decision, right? Because I don't make that decision alone in my room.
So where do you see the space for greater involvement and participation and communion of the laity, young people, women in the church? Do you see spaces in the Archdiocese where that could be improved and
it could always be improved, but at the same time, I have to, in terms of my experience, I was pastor of 2 parishes. In both those parishes, the clergy were like half of 1%, if that, right? Everybody else were actually lay people. my councils, my advisors, my staff, and most of them are actually women. So my experience of ministry in the church, in this archdiocese or in the United States, because I've been in 3 different dioceses as a bishop. This is now my 3rd rodeo, so to speak, my 3rd diocese as a bishop, has been that it has been infused with the presence of the laity, the presence of women in the church. Most of the voices that I've heard, in 34 years of priesthood, have actually been the laity for me, right? And even if you look around this room, they're all lay people, right? And only 2 men, right? Even in this room. So that's my experience of it. That my experience is there always areas to improve? Of course there is. In the same way that if someone were to ask me, are there areas in your life where you need to improve? My response would be, are you kidding me? I got lots of areas that I still need to grow in and improve. Because I think the desires and dreams that the Lord has for us individually and as church are kind of infinite. His dreams are kind of infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Challenging for us, though, but infinite.
Yes, the Holy Spirit is surprising, right?
Very
and
surprising.
Listening to the Holy Spirit is uncomfortable.
At times, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At times, because he turns our world upside down, right? But only to bring new life into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only to bring new life.
So, what are your hopes for the assembly in Rome? What do you hope will be talked about? What do you hope will be the spirit there? Is there anything you would want me to bring along to Rome?
I would say that my hope is that the Synod will help us to be better listeners, right? Which is ultimately the spirit of synodality, right? Mm-hmm. For everybody involved, right? For those who are talking, also learn how to listen too, because there's a world around us that's talking to the church, and then and they also need to listen, and the church needs to listen, right? So ultimately, is that we become better listeners, and not just waiting our time to talk, because sometimes we really don't listen. We just buy our time so then we could say our thing. Right, so hopefully that we learn to listen better to each other and to the world around us, which is really a spirit that was born in very powerful ways from the Second Vatican Council. Gaudium et Spes, the church in the modern world. The church now saying we have to listen to this world. And if you read that document from the Second Vatican Council, it almost appears like it was written yesterday. It's not dated. It appears that it was listened yesterday. It was written. It appears that it was written yesterday. So my hope is that we deepen our ability to listen in non-judgmental ways. Mm-hmm. In non-judgmental ways, respecting, of course, the teachings and the doctrines of the church, because they have been handed on as a deposit of faith that is not for us to play around with, because that's a gift that we are stewards of. But how do we apply that to our lives to deepen also our own spirit and our own spiritual life?
All right, thank you.
So Julia, this is exciting. In a few days, you'll be traveling to Rome, to the Eternal City, and gathering with, I believe it's over 300 other delegates from around the world, each coming from different places and different circumstances. It will be an incredible experience for you as a young adult in the church, to realize, one thing that you will realize is how amazing the church is, how profound it actually is, how diverse it actually is, how truly Catholic it is. You will experience the church in this synod really in all its splendor. with everything that that means. And I hope that it will be a life-changing experience for you and for your fellow delegates as you experience the church in all its splendor, as the church listens and as the church tries to understand, and that the church then as mother guides, as father guides, right, through our Holy Father. So know that you'll be in our prayers and in our thoughts, day in and day out. It'll be a long month. It's not for the faint of heart, but it will be a rewarding time for you personally, your family, but also for us here in Philadelphia. I just want to let you know that I, for one, as the Archbishop, and the people of Philadelphia are deeply proud of you. You're one of just a handful from North America. And at the end, it's what God wanted. So congratulations, and know that you go with our blessings and with our prayers as you enter the first month, because there's another one, and that's next year. So we'll be doing this all over again next year. So God bless you.
Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you
Great.
very much.